always so fascinated by Greek mythology. What is it about it that gets our creative juices flowing? Is it the colorful cast of characters? Is it the fantastical and otherworldly imagery? Is it the timeless and often tragic stories? Whatever the case might be, we're just drawn to depicting them in new and exciting ways, especially for their infamous cavalcade of monsters. From the Minotaur to the Cerberus, all of them are unique and frightening. But none are more fearsome than Medusa. She has been depicted many times over the years, as a villain, as a victim, as an anti-hero, and even as a hero. With such a complex and rich history, of course she would come to the Haunted Mansion. Despite a limited presence, she still leaves an impact for all mortals who entered its dank and dark halls. To truly understand how and why, lean back in your doom buggy as we learn about her together. Medusa was first referenced in the story of the Greek hero Perseus, who went through many trials to save his wife Andromeda. He cut off her head and gave it to the goddess Athena, so she could put it on the Aegis, a shield, animal skin, or whatever the author felt like making it. She's also a Gorgon, a being with snakes for hair with a glare that can turn men into stone. The Roman poet Ovid went a step further, telling her origin story. Medusa was once a beautiful mortal woman, like any other, until she was raped by the god Poseidon in the temple of Athena. So offended by this act, the goddess punished Medusa, turning her hair into snakes and giving her a glare of stone. And before you bring it up in the comments, no, I don't buy the headcanon that she did it to protect her. Because she told Perseus how to kill her and gave him the shield and helmet he needed to do it. Even though she was the one who made her that way. The gods are dicks, man. But with both of these tales, we have the basic Medusa story. Back to the Haunted Mansion. Medusa is one of the few characters we can clearly trace from concept to the finished ride. Mark Davis drew a changing portrait of her, and it was brought to the mansion pretty much as is. There was one minor change. The portrait originally had 3 phases. The first was the beautiful woman, the second was the Gorgon, and the third was the stone Gorgon. With the way these changing portraits ended up, lightning flashes and the paintings are different. You can see why they dropped the middle phase. The last phase is also a part of their Sister 11, found in Tokyo Disneyland. It's the same painting, only the effect is different. Now her eyes follow you as you move down the hallway. She was once in Florida, but was dropped when the new portrait gallery was added. With her normal changing portrait there, having 2 of her is a little redundant. She used to be at Phantom Manor as well, but was nixed when the new portraits were added in 2019. Did you know that Medusa wasn't the only figure in Greek mythology to be considered for the mansion? Along with her, Davis also considered a portrait of Daphne. Daphne was a river nymph that the god Apollo fell in love with. However, she didn't want him, having basically taken a vow of chastity. She kept running away from him until she finally got tired and asked her father for help. To help her, he turned her into a laurel tree. Apollo used his powers to make her evergreen, and that's why the laurel trees always have leaves. Daphne's changing portrait had several phases and seemed to be a serious contender for the mansion, but the concept was dropped entirely. I imagine it's because they didn't want 2 of the 5 changing portraits to be based on Greek mythology, and when it came down to choosing them, Medusa was the obvious winner. There are a couple of interesting appearances to consider. When I did my video on the count, I mentioned a crypt for famous villains. This was going to be at the Tokyo Mansion, but was ultimately rejected. Well, guess who was going to be entombed there? That's right, Medusa. Which, putting her alongside people like Nero... Come on, that's doing her dirty. When the Haunted Mansion movie was being made, they did make a Medusa portrait. However, it never made it into the finished movie, and the only reason you know it exists is if you looked at the DVD menu. She had a cameo in the Marvel comics as well. Here, she and many of the other changing portraits are under the control of the captain, forced to do his bidding. As it turns out, she can just up and leave her portrait and walk around. Or in this case, chase after a boy when he enters the mansion. And of course, she makes one last appearance at Mystic Manor, a ride I don't think I've talked about on this channel. A fresco of Medusa is located in the Mediterranean Hall, where Lord Henry Mystic houses his Greek and Roman artifacts. When the magic of the music box passes into the room, the fresco comes to life. Her head sprouts her signature snakes, and her eyes glow red. It's a 3D effect, and the snakes literally jump off of the fresco. Plus, the colors change with a blacklight effect. It's really cool. I will make it to Hong Kong Disneyland one day to see this in person. It's becoming clearer that this series is just as much of a history lesson as it is a general, hey, let's talk about a Disney ride thing. Sometimes the greater context surrounding a character is just as interesting as what can be found in the ride itself. And it gives you a new sense of appreciation for both the character and how they fit into the mansion, even if it's just a drive-by appearance. I hope you enjoy hearing that just as much as you do hearing other stories. However, we must continue with our little tour, so lean back in your doom buggy and we will proceed in the next video. Thanks for watching!